Hey there, it's Kristen. And before we dive into today's episode, I have a tiny favor to ask. I'm planning some exciting stuff this year for the podcast and my courses, and I would really love your input. I put together a super quick survey. It's mostly multiple choice and shouldn't take you more than a few minutes. Your feedback will directly shape the content I create this year, so I can make sure it's exactly what you need to thrive in your business without the hustle. Because I know your time is precious, everyone who completes the survey gets entered into a giveaway where 2 lucky winners will get a $50 gift card to Amazon or Target, your choice. It's just a little thank you for helping me make this year on the show the best yet. Head over to kristendoyle.co/survey, or you can find the link in the show notes. The giveaway ends on April 14th, so don't wait too long. Hey y'all, welcome to this episode of The Savvy Teacher Seller. I'm your host, Kristen Doyle, and my guest today is Brittany Long, the queen of Evergreen and the genius behind the AI Copy Club. Before she became an entrepreneur, Brittany was an award-winning educator, so believe me when I say she gets us as teacher sellers. We are diving into how you can use AI to better market your TPT resources, save time, and still keep things 100% you. We even talked about how being a teacher is a little bit of a superpower when it comes to getting the best responses out of your favorite AI tools. Whether you've been using AI since it first became a thing, you've dabbled just a little bit and gotten frustrated with it, or you think it's shady and you've sworn never to use it, there is something for you in this episode. Our conversation was so good, and I'm so excited for you to hear this one. Here's our chat. Hey, TPT sellers, ready to see growth in your business? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Savvy Teacher Seller. I'm Kristen Doyle, and I'm here to give you no-fluff tools and strategies that will really make an impact on your sales. Let's get started, y'all. Hi, Brittany. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
Me too. Let's start with just kind of talking about you and how you got here. I know you were doing lots of things in the business world before you started talking and teaching about AI. How did you get into AI?
Well, it really started actually when I was teaching, which is kind of funny. So I taught for 4 years, and after the second year, I had a cancer scare. I thought I was dying because that's what they told me, and it really changed my perspective. And so I kind of knew for a while that something else was out there for me, and trying to figure out what that was. And so that really catapulted me into that. And really, my journey to AI has been full of all these pivots and changes and things like that. But that was probably that first one where I thought, okay, so what's next for me? And so then I entered into the business and marketing world, and I did freelance writing and email marketing. And then I had my business with email marketing. And then when ChatGPT came out, I thought, oh, this is going to be like all the other AI tools that are out there right now. It's not going to be that great. And then I got into it and I saw what it could do. And I thought, okay, either I need to pivot or my business is going to look completely different in the next 5-10 years. And I thought, well, all right, let's go all in and let's pivot and let's figure out what this looks like. And the reason that I mentioned my teaching experience is because I was able to use a lot of that experience of talking to students, talking to adults in how I prompt. And so when I'm prompting with AI, I talk to it like I'm talking to a team member or like I'm talking to a student. And if you've ever had a student that, sometimes it's like playing the game of telephone where you will say instructions and then someone will be like, wait, what are we doing exactly? Or they'll do something completely different. You know what I mean? And so, but that's kind of how I talk to AI is I'm thinking, what is it that it's going to get confused about? What is it that's it's going to misunderstand? What questions is it going to have? And so I want to give it a full picture of what I'm trying to look for when I'm prompting. And I use a lot of my teaching experience with that. So that's a very short version of how I got here. But it really has been lots of pivots and figuring out how can I best help my audience while, being able to grow my business and my influence and my impact.
Yeah, I love that. I've never thought about it in terms of our teaching experience. Of course, my whole audience is teachers or counselors or speech therapists or something teacher related. Mm-hmm. And we really do kind of have some unique experience that can help us make better use of AI because we can teach it and talk to it the way that we talk to our students and things.
Think about the quality of instructions that you have to give to get a classroom of 27 students, all with different learning levels, all with different experiences, all with different backgrounds, all with different, did they have breakfast? Did they not? Do they get along with their parents in the morning? Do they not? So they come into your classroom with all these different backgrounds every single day. And yet you stand in front of the class and give instructions to those 27 students or however many students. If you can do that, you can absolutely learn how to prompt AI, because honestly, it's much easier than doing that.
Yeah, it is at least predictable, and it always listens, which, doesn't always happen with our students.
Very true.
So let's talk about some ways that we can be using AI, specifically as TPT sellers. We've got tons of products. We've got tons of blog posts. We have emails. We have so much content that we are putting out in the world between the products themselves and the way that we're marketing them. What are some good ways for TPT sellers to use AI?
So I think the best way you can use it is a way to save time. And so that's talking about product descriptions. So if you're, coming up with something and you're tired at the end of the day, or maybe you're not, but either way, you have to create a product description instead of doing it from scratch every time, putting a little bit into AI, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude, and asking it to come up with a product description for you, letting it know specifically this is a product description. It can do it so much faster. And I often find it doing it better than I think I probably would on my own, because it thinks of things that I wouldn't have thought of. Sometimes we're so close to our own products, our own offers, that it's hard to explain it to somebody, And so I think that's one of the most helpful ways that you can use it. You can also use it to look for gaps in what you're creating. And so you might say, this is what I've created so far. This is who my audience is. What other things could I create that they may be interested in? So it gives you some ideas that you may not have thought of. And then also anything that people might get stuck on while they're going through whatever it is that you created. And so this would give you an opportunity to create additional products or even just clarify the instructions so they're not getting stuck on something in your product. And then, of course, we have the marketing side of it, the emails, the blog posts, the YouTube videos, Instagram posts, Instagram stories, Instagram reels, anything with Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn articles. So there's a lot of different things you can do, but the marketing side of it is really where you're going to see a lot of time being saved.
Yeah. And I think especially for TPT sellers, we're naturally teachers. We are not naturally business owners or marketers, right? So a lot of times the marketing side of things, whether it's in our product descriptions or in the actual marketing content, our social media posts and things like that, that stuff doesn't usually come naturally to us. And I think using a tool like ChatGPT or one of the other AI tools really can help make that shift into the marketing mindset and help us think of things we wouldn't have realized we needed to say in marketing content.
Yeah. And I think that way too, you're not stuck in the weeds of marketing, because if you create all these amazing products that are going to be so, so helpful to your people, but nobody knows about it because you aren't marketing it, because it feels heavy, or it feels like a lot, or you're not sure what to say, or, you feel weird about it, or whatever the case may be. If your stuff isn't getting out there, it's not going to be able to help anybody. And so we really want to have that marketing side really strong so that you're getting the most out of the work that you're doing. But also so that the people that you're trying to serve are able to actually use those resources because they know about those resources.
Yeah, I love that. So one of my struggles early on with AI, and I think I've kind of, stumbled on some answers, but I'm curious what you would say. One of my struggles is sometimes it feels like you plug in a prompt and you don't get what you want. And then you end up spending all this time trying to get it to give you the right thing. Like, no, that's not what I meant. I want this. No, that's still not right. I want this. So how can we use these AI tools effectively in a way that actually does save us time? Because sometimes, that can lead to feeling like this is actually taking me longer than just doing it myself. So how can we do this in a way that really does save us time?
So I would go back to thinking about how you interact with your students. So if you gave them instructions, they brought you something that wasn't at all what you were looking for, you wouldn't just say, no, that's not what I want. You would give them specifics. You would say, okay, I like that you did this and we need to add X, Y, and Z here, but I don't like this part because it doesn't, it's not on task or on brand, not on brand, on task, whatever the case may be there. But we're going to tell them, here's the part that's working, here's the part that's not working. But then we're also going to give them examples. You wouldn't expect a student to be able to create something you're asking them to create with 0 examples and get exactly what you're looking for the first time. So we want to give it examples too. So for example, if I'm writing a blog post, I can do one of 2 things. One, I can either give an example of past blog posts that I've written and say, this is the voice, the tone, the style that I'm looking for. I can ask it to create an outline for me first that I can approve, which seems to help a lot. Same thing with emails, giving an outline first. But then the other thing is to record yourself talking about it. And I found that this is one of the most important ways to not only ethically use AI, but also get it to give you what you want more quickly. So when I say ethically, I mean, one of the concerns with AI is that it's basically taking other people's ideas or the ideas and thoughts that are out there in the world. And then, you're copy and pasting instead of coming from your own brain, even if you know the stuff. And so the way that I recommend that people use AI is to have it create an outline for them. Let's say we're doing a blog post. I can say, okay, I want you to create an outline for this blog post. Here's the topic, come up with the keywords. But then once I see the outline, what I like to do is create a video of myself. And so I'll just record myself talking about it, my thoughts on the topic, my thoughts on the different pieces of it. And then I use the transcript from there. And once I have that transcript, then I can turn it into a blog post, social media post, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, everything. And I have the video that I can put on YouTube if I want, or cut into shorts if I want for Instagram or TikTok. But what I love about that is that it's coming from your own brain.
I love that.
Yeah, it's your voice, your style, your brain. And I think it's a much more effective way to do it because you're getting what you want from the beginning. It's just kind of helping you process it out.
Yeah. And I think long-term, that should be better for SEO and things, as well as Google is starting to pay attention to what it thinks is AI created and what's not. And they're looking for unique ideas. So they want your thoughts. From what I have learned, and correct me if you know something different, doesn't seem like Google's penalizing you for using AI. They don't care who writes it, it doesn't seem like, but they do care if it's unique ideas that aren't the same stuff that's out there everywhere.
Right.
So it sounds like making a video or a voice recording or whatever and putting a transcript of your own thoughts and words into the AI tool to help to let them kind of polish it up, flesh it out a little bit. That is a good way to make Google still happy and still, serve your audience in a better way too.
Absolutely. And you can do the same thing with books too. Like on Amazon KDP, for example, you have to let them know if it's AI generated. So in other words, AI created it for you, or if it's AI edited, that's okay. So AI edited would be you came up with the ideas, you use your voice, and then it just edited it for you. And that's really what we're looking to do is you have important things to say. You have useful, helpful things to get out to your audience. And so it's just a matter of taking that and being able to just zhuzh it up a little bit and edit it a little bit. And that's really what you can do with that process.
And I know for me, that would probably save a ton of time because I'm way faster at saying my thoughts out loud. I am super comfortable chatting about things, but when it comes time to write something, I overthink for the longest. I will write a sentence and change it 20 times before I'm ever ready to publish it. And AI tools can help with that. And then I can just get my thoughts out in the messy way that they come out all on their own and then use the AI to polish it up.
Exactly.
Love that. Can you give us maybe a little bit of a workflow for kind of how you approach putting in a new prompt and making it look like you want it to?
Absolutely. So I start with ideation. So I'll say, this is who my audience is. These are, a few of the keywords that I want to rank for. And then I ask it to come up with a bunch of different ideas on topics for a blog post. And so then it'll come up with 20 or 30 for me. I'll say, okay, I really like this one. Let's start with this one. And then I'll ask it to create an outline for me. So we go ideation to outline. After I have the outline, that's when I record the video or the audio. And then I take the transcripts. Then I start with the blog post because that's the longest one that I do. And so I try to do longest form text to shortest form text. So I'll do blog post first. And then once that's done, I've edited how I want it. I'll go to LinkedIn article. Now with the blog post, often it's too short at the beginning. And so if that happens, I will say, instead of just rewrite or make it longer, I'll say, okay, let's look at this particular section. And I'll give it the headline or subheadline. I'll say, let's look at this section. I want you to expand on it using my transcript. And so then it expands on that section. And so with the blog posts, you have different sections that you're expanding until it's all done. You might have some light edits, but because it's your ideas already, there's not that many. And then next I'll say, okay, now I want you to turn this into a LinkedIn article. So I go blog post to LinkedIn article. And then after LinkedIn article, I ask for usually 2 to 3 emails, and I have it outline the emails first. I find if I ask it to write the emails on its own immediately, then they're very short and they're kind of crappy. So I have it do the outline. Right? You've seen that too. So outlines first, and then I'll say, okay, great. Now let's do email 1. And so then we do email 1. A lot of times with the first email, it's not quite what I'm looking for. And so I'll say, okay, this is close, but we're not quite there yet. I like this part because that sounds like me, or because it makes a lot of sense, or whatever reason I like it. But I don't like this part. And I say why I don't like it. And then I say, I would say this instead. Mm-hmm. And so then I tell it what I would say instead. Now that part does take a little bit of time, but I found that if I do that, then the other emails, the other content that I create is much more on point because I took the time to give it the feedback to make sure it is understanding what I like. So then after I have the email, then I go to Facebook posts because those are the next longest thing. Then I go to Instagram captions. Usually I do 5 of those. And then after that, I go to TikTok outlines, TikTok or Reels outlines. And then after that, I do a tweet or thread. And that's it.
Love it. So really working from the longest content down.
Right. Exactly. Yep. And that seems to work best. If I start at shortest content, it tends to pull more of those short pieces versus having a longer cohesive blog post or LinkedIn article.
Do you find that, I don't know what tool you're using most often. Do you find that whichever one is kind of remembering things from one chat to another?
So I use ChatGPT, the paid version, GPT-4, most of the time when I'm writing any kind of copy. It doesn't remember from one chat to the other, but within that same chat, it will remember for quite a while. And if I find that it's giving me some funky stuff that I'm like, where is this coming from? Or if it's making things up, I'll just straight out ask it. I'll be like, this seems weird. Are you making this up? And it'll be like, oh, yes, apologies, which again is kind of like if you're talking with a student and, they give you something that you're like, I'm pretty sure your mom made this for you. And you ask them like, hey,
right.
Did you have some help at home? Did they do this for you? And they're like, yeah. So it's kind of like that. And then if ChatGPT, there's every once in a while, like every probably once or twice a month, it'll be really just off. It's not giving me good things. When that happens, I use Claude.ai instead, which is currently available in the US. I think it's either coming to Canada soon or is already in Canada as well. But that's the other option that I use is Claude.ai. Those two are my like dynamic duo when it comes to copy.
I have played a little bit with Rank Math's new version of their content AI, and it's really interesting too. Like you were talking about finding sections in your blog post to expand on. They have a button for that. So you can click in a paragraph block and just click expand, and it will just keep talking about whatever you typed. And sometimes I'll use that when I know what I want to say, but I don't feel like writing it all out. I can type the short version and say expand on this, and it will just kind of keep going in the same thread, which is really nice. That's one of the newer things that they just added not too long ago.
Google Docs actually does that too, and so does Canva AI. It seems like this is going to be the new norm, is to be able to have that feature, which I think will be really, really helpful.
Yeah, I think it is for sure. Any tips on making our AI content sound like us instead of sounding, like an AI bot? Because they love to use certain words like unlock. And that's the big one. I get unlock in almost everything that it generates for me.
That's so interesting. I found it really interesting how different people have different things. So I see Game Changer, Unleash, Unlock. There's another one. And then someone else I know that's a copywriter gets cherry on top a lot, which is funny because I've never ever got that one. So I think part of it is
I don't think I have either.
Yeah, I think part of it is the copy that we put in as examples. I know I've used Game Changer before AI came out. And so I think that's why I see that one a lot. And I think she's used that phrase cherry on top before. So it's just really interesting to see some of those trends. But the biggest thing is just using your transcript, using something that reflects your voice and then giving it the feedback. And so like if I'm doing a Black Friday offer, for example, I'm going to keep all of that in the same chat because then I can just train in that chat how to get my voice and how to sound like me. And I don't have to keep restarting every time, whether it's an email or a post. So that's the biggest thing is using your transcript and then giving it feedback too of I like this, I don't like this. And then I think giving it examples too of this is how I normally write, or this is how I normally talk, and I want it to sound like that, my style, my voice, my tone. And then when it doesn't, because every once in a while it won't, but when it doesn't, say something along the lines of, this doesn't look right. Are you using my transcript, or are you using my email as an example? And then if it's not, it'll say, oops, sorry. But if it is, it'll show you where it's using it. And you can say, okay, I see where you're using it, but I want more of my voice, for example, and then giving it some examples. But I find if I do that, a few times in a chat, I can use that chat for a very long time.
Yeah, I love that. One tip that I've heard somewhere that has worked out pretty well for me is I did a chat a while back, and I plugged in 2 or 3 or 4 pieces of content that I had written. Mm-hmm. And I asked ChatGPT, how would you describe my voice? Read these and tell me how you would describe the tone and the voice and all of that. And so then I just copy pasted those words and saved them in a Google Doc, so that if I'm having trouble getting ChatGPT to pick up on how I want to talk, I can say, hey, remember you told me I sound like this. I want to sound like these things. Because I have trouble knowing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like you're too close to your own stuff, right? Like it might sound one way to you, but we don't know how it's sounding to hit. Yeah, exactly. I think too, if you find that it's not giving you what you want, you can also say, I really want you to write an email like this, but every time I ask you to, you write an email that sounds X, Y, and Z instead. What do I need to ask you so that you write an email, or so you write a blog post that sounds like this example blog post? And then it'll give you ideas on how to prompt it instead of whatever prompt you're giving it. Sometimes the prompt is just off, and what I found is that sometimes I'm not exactly sure what words to use, but asking it what words to use, it helps.
It does. It helps a lot. I think I told it I wanted to casual and friendly or something like that. And what I got back was like, yo, what's up? I'm like, that's maybe not that casual.
Yeah.
Let's make me sound still kind of professional.
That's so funny. It's
I think that was when I really said, okay, read my stuff and tell me what you think I sound like.
I think it's funny how the words sometimes that we use are very different than the words that it sees it as or as it would use. So yeah, it's really like just the reflection piece of it too, of like, okay, so I think I'm sounding like this, but it thinks I'm sounding like this. I wonder if other people think this too. So it's just interesting to kind of try to figure that out.
Yeah. And I love your tip for asking it how to prompt it. Mm-hmm. I want to create this. What information do you need? How can I help you help me?
Yep.
Because sometimes we just don't know what we need to put into the prompt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And again, it really, I keep saying, it's like when you're a teacher, but it really is because so much of my teaching experience has made it easier for me to do this. But like if I have a student that is having a really rough day and that's, not behaving like they normally would, I might not know what they need, but asking them like, hey, I've noticed this and this and this. This isn't like you. Is there, what's going on? What do you need today? Sometimes just asking that, sometimes they know, and so it's just that same thing. So it really does come back to so much of what makes me really good at using AI is from my teaching experience.
Yeah, I love that. And, before you said it, I really never thought about tapping into teaching experience as a way to make better use of AI. I probably have been doing some of those things just naturally because as teachers, that's what we do. It's how we handle situations. But definitely love that advice. And I am going to be keeping that front of mind, especially when I'm not getting what I want out of my AI tools. Mm-hmm. One thing I've found for sure with especially things like product descriptions where maybe I'm not so great at writing the marketing part of it that needs to be at the beginning, but ChatGPT might not be so great at figuring out all the nitty-gritty details, is if I can write just the detail part. Like it has this many activities and it's that many days. It includes these terms, whatever all the specifics are that ChatGPT or whoever can't figure out. Then I'm able to provide that and say, what else do you need to write me a good product description? And that tends to help a lot too.
It feels very collaborative almost, like you are working with a team member. I was working with a e-com brand recently and they have candles. And there's a lot of, I don't know if you've been on, looking online for candles anytime recently, but there are a lot of candles and candle companies out there. And
Yeah.
even if you're using like only soy or only beeswax or whatever it is, there's a lot of companies that do that specific thing too. And so sometimes it can feel challenging to stand out, whether, whatever industry it's in, there's always that challenge of how do I stand out in a saturated market or even an unsaturated market? How do I stand out? And so telling it, what we did was we told it the specification, kind of like you said. But then I said, okay, I want you to add some emotion to this. I want you to paint a picture for them of why they want to use this candle. And so we said, I think the scent we said was like bonfire or something like that. And so I said, this is for moms who have, 2 to 3 kids that are working full time and momming full time, like that kind of thing. And so it came up with this really beautiful description of like, slip into the bath where you'll be transported into this like mystical land where you have no responsibilities and nothing going on. And you just get to sit there and eat chocolate. And I don't remember exactly what it was, but the picture that it came up with, I was like, I want that candle. Like I must have that candle, even though I have so many candles. I don't need another candle, but the messaging, the messaging along with it, I was like, yes, that's what I want. And so I think it's really good at adding that story piece of it, that emotion piece of it, that here's how this is going to help you piece that I think sometimes we can struggle with because we're just so close to our own goods.
Yeah, I love that advice, especially in the TPT world, because it is, in a lot of cases, a very saturated market. There are so many sellers out there, and especially for those of us in the elementary space, there's just so much competition. And so using some things like that to help your product description stand out and paint a picture of what this is going to look like in the classroom. How are your students going to feel? How are you going to feel? All of those kinds of things. It's super helpful to have kind of like you said, a team member that can help you do that.
Yeah. It's like the difference between saying, this is a letter tracing activity that has 4 pages. It's like going from that to saying, this will turn your chaotic morning into a calm one as students come in and get to trace their own letter. I don't know what I would say exactly, but it adds that piece in where it's painting that picture of here's how this is going to make your day easier, your student's life better. And I think that's a really important part of it, that it's easy to miss because I think it's a challenging part for a lot of folks to be able to think outside of like, I created this thing. Here's what this thing is. Buy this thing because it's going to help you, and add more of that story piece to it.
Yeah, it's definitely a big challenge for a lot of TPT sellers, at least the ones that I've been talking to. And I know it's something I struggle with too. We're just so close to our products. We're like, I created it. It's amazing. It's going to teach your kids their math facts better, and just buy it.
Right.
The average buyer needs to be sold a little bit more. They need to paint a picture of what's this going to look like? How is this going to work in my class?
Yep.
So that they can really see the value in what you're offering.
I used to feel bad about that too, because I was like, oh, am I being manipulative? Am I being too salesy and all of that? But then I really did realize that at the end of the day, if this isn't getting into anybody's hands because they can't picture themselves using it, then it's not helping anybody. It's not helping me because it's not making me any money. It's not helping them because it's not like they're not buying it because they don't see themselves using it. And so that marketing piece of it is so important. And like people need what you have. I know we said that earlier, but people need what you have. And it's important that they get it. And it's important to have the marketing for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've talked a lot about things that we can do and things we should do with AI tools. What about things maybe we should not be doing? Is there anything we shouldn't do with an AI tool?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is not just copying and pasting exactly what you get, especially if you're not using a transcript, you're just asking it questions or giving it a prompt. I wouldn't just copy and paste exactly what you get. Make sure you're editing. I also always like to double check that it's not pulling from somebody else's something that's been on the internet. I really want to make sure that I'm not plagiarizing on someone else's stuff. And so always double checking with that. I think that's important. Those are the biggest things I'd say is just making it your own, I guess, is really what it comes down to, is making it your own.
Definitely. I find a lot of times I will copy paste what it gives me and then go through the whole thing, and I might change almost the entire thing before I actually save, because I'm just making it sound a little more like me and maybe tweaking something that's not quite my exact opinion to make it match up with what I really believe or how I would actually teach this concept or whatever it is. Definitely making it your own is important. And I have not really checked before to see if things are out there somewhere. I guess because I tweak it enough, I feel like I'm okay. But how do you do that? Do you just do a quick Google of the content, or is there something else you use?
I just use Google. There's other things you can use, like GPT-0 would be one, or Zero GPT. There's two that have almost the exact same name. Is either Zero GPT or GPT-0. I'll use that sometimes, but really, usually I just Google it. Often I don't find anything, but every once in a while I'll find something that's not the same, but it's similar enough that I would feel uncomfortable with it. In markets that have a lot of people in them, it's not as big of a concern for me, ironically, because it's like watered down enough that it's like a starting place for me, unless I'm obviously using my own transcript. But I've worked with other people who have a very specific industry. Like I know someone who has, it's like campfire cooking with not exotic meats, because that sounds really weird, but like with like wild boar and stuff like that. So there's not a lot of people with cookbooks about wild boar. And so when you would ask it about, a recipe for that, it's going to come up with his, or you ask it to create something, it's going to come up with his, because there's just not a lot of people talking about it. And so that's really where my concern would be if you have something that's like super, super, super niche that not a lot of people talk about. But even then, really just making it your own and making sure it reflects your thoughts, your ideas.
Yeah, definitely something that we need to keep front of mind. As wonderful as AI is, and as much time as it can save us, like you said, there are those ethical implications that we need to be thinking about for sure. So I appreciate your thoughts on that. Yeah.
I was going to say, I had an experience where I did a training and somebody took my exact transcript and then just rephrased it. And that, to me, that felt unethical, because I wouldn't do that to someone, because I think that's their thing. If they want to talk about their thoughts on it and then make it their own, okay. But to take the direct transcript from someone else and then put it off as your own, I think that's a little bit unethical. But that's really why I encourage people to use their own transcripts, so that it really is your thoughts and your ideas. Mm-hmm. And for me, I can feel very good about putting stuff out there that is AI edited when it comes to my own thoughts. So I think that's really just the biggest thing, is making sure whatever it is that you put out there, it's your own ideas, your own thoughts, your own way of doing things.
Yeah. I think that's an important difference to think about too, is the difference between AI edited versus AI written.
Right.
And getting our own thoughts out there, like you said, is just so important. Love your tip about this. Well, I guess it wasn't a tip exactly, but your story about this person, it just reminds me that, we should always be thinking, how would I feel if someone did this to me? And if it doesn't feel good, if I don't want someone to do that with my content, I probably shouldn't do it with theirs either.
Yep, exactly.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. This has been such a great conversation. I know I have walked away with lots of ideas and tips, and I'm sure everyone else has too. Can you share with our listeners where they can find you to connect and learn more about using AI?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, pretty much everywhere at Impact Driven AI. And then on my website, impactdrivenai.com.
Awesome. And we'll drop those links in the show notes as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for hanging out with me and Brittany today. I was a pretty early adopter when ChatGPT came on the scene, but wow, she definitely has me thinking about using AI differently. If you are anything like me, you're probably already brainstorming ways that you can use AI to update some product listings and do some of the marketing in your TPT store without losing that personal touch. I know I am personally headed over to join her AI Copy Club right now. Make sure that you give Brittany a follow at Impact Driven AI. You can find all her links and info in today's show notes. She is just a wealth of tips and ideas on how we can embrace this technology, but also use it in ways that still feel really authentic to us. Talk to you soon, friends. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please share it with another teacher seller who would also find it helpful. For more resources on growing your TPT business, head to kristendoyle.co/TPT. Talk to you soon.